The Indian Air Force takes to the skies to defend our borders. The artillery opens up to punish Pakistan terror. The enemy is at the gates. Tension spikes both at the line of control and the line of actual control. Amidst this tension, 80,000 Ordnance Factory Board employees threaten to go on an indefinite strike. With enemies on both fronts, should defense factories threaten the nation with a strike at this time? Self-interest first or India first? That's our top focus on this show. Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal RKS Bhadauria made it very clear that the Indian Air Force was currently in a position to strike first and strike deep while we hit the enemy hard should the need arise. Now take a look at the situation at the line of actual control where Indian and Chinese forces are locked in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation since the month of May. Look at the condition at the line of control. We've just lost a junior commissioned officer of the Indian Army about an hour ago. Pakistan has repeatedly violated ceasefire at the LOC. And in such a situation, when you have enemy at both the gates, you have the Ordnance Factory Board and 80,000 employees who are threatening to go on an indefinite strike from the 12th of October. Incidentally, 12th of October is the date when the two corps commanders meet. How will the Chinese corps commander react to the Indian corps commander when he'll have that smirk on his face thinking 80,000 Indian employees of the Ordnance Factory Board are on strike? How will we fight China? We'll talk about that in greater detail. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, let's get started. Our top focus story on the broadcast is the Chief of Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal RKS Bhadauria's major statement that India is in a position to strike first, strike deep and hit hard. He spoke of the Rafale fighter jets and the game changer that they were. He also spoke about the future of modernization of the Indian Air Force. This is ahead of the 89th Air Force Day on the 8th of October. At the same time, he highlighted the current situation, not just along the line of actual control, but also the line of control and the possibility of the Chinese and the Pakistanis colluding to target India.
Amidst the hovering war clouds, the Indian Air Force Chief has sent out the strongest warning to China. A stern warning. The guardians of the skies, the air warriors, are locked and loaded. As a tense standoff between India and the Chinese army along the line of actual control in Ladakh drags on, the Indian Air Force Chief has sounded a warning to both China and Pakistan.
हमारी हमेशा ये फोकस रहता है कि हमारी ऑपरेशनल कैपेबिलिटी करंट थ्रेट सिनेरियो के अगेंस्ट बिल्डअप की जाए, अगेंस्ट प्रिपेयर्ड रहे एंड हमारी कैपेबिलिटी पूरी तरह से तैयार है टू फ्रंट वॉर के लिए भी.
With China showing no real intent of de-escalation in Ladakh, India remains prepared with high operational military readiness to deal with any contingency. The Indian Air Force has deployed its prime war assets like the Su-30, MiG-29s, Mirage 2000s and Apaches, which are dominating the Asia-blue Ladakh skies. While the Chinooks, C-17 Globemasters and IL-76s are piercing through the thin mountain air of Ladakh, ferrying men, machine and rations to forward locations, Air Chief Marshal Bhadauria says that the induction of the Rafale fighter jets has given India an operational edge that can deter any adversary.
We are in position to take on China in that area. Of course we are. There is no question of not taking over, not taking on the threat there. We are very well positioned, and there is no question that in any conflict scenario there, China can get the better of us.
With winter closing in, India's air assets deployed on airfields close by are on high alert, ready for any misadventure, by the adversary.
The standoff with China is already 5 months old, and it seems that this tussle is going to continue for many more months. In such a scenario, a synergy between the Army and the Indian Air Force is extremely important. The Indian Air Force has been playing a very critical role in ensuring that the Army gets logistics in the front line, but from here onwards, the Air Force has made it clear that if the need be, it can also carry out airstrikes at a short notice. Abhishek Bhalla in New Delhi for India Today.
Now, given this scenario, can you imagine when you need all hands on the deck, you have 80,000 employees of the Ordnance Factory Board who've threatened to go on an indefinite strike from the 12th of October. Ordnance Factory Board manufactures artillery guns, rifles, small arms ammunition, high altitude winter clothing, shoes, boots, tents, everything that our soldiers require and require now. And in numbers, they would also require replenishments. But they've decided to go on a strike. Are these bullying tactics? Are these blackmailing and threatening tactics, especially at a time when China and Pakistan are both threatening us at the line of control and line of actual control? Should the Ordnance Factory Boards not put India first? The enemy is at the gates. India and China have been in a prolonged standoff in Ladakh and along the entire line of actual control till Arunachal Pradesh since early May. Pakistan has increased ceasefire violations along the line of control. There have been instances of even the artillery opening up.
हम किसी भी कन्वेंशनल कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के लिए और किसी भी तरह के कॉन्फ्लिक्ट के लिए फुल्ली प्रिपेयर्ड हैं एंड उसमें टू फ्रंट वॉर भी इंक्लूडेड है.
Amidst this tense two-front standoff, more than 80,000 employees of the Ordnance Factory Board, manufacturing ammunition, trucks, tents, clothing and shoes, have threatened to go on an indefinite strike from the 12th of October.
This is the time when the ordnance factories, the unions, should have stood with the nation when there are crises along the LAC and the LOC. The ordnance factories are strategic assets they are aware of. They have the capital, they have the skill, but that the wrong attitude and probably lack of innovation, they have not been able to win the hearts and minds of the user.
For the armed forces, the strike couldn't have come at a worse time, when every hand is needed on the deck to build stronger defenses and provide adequate quantity of ammunition, tents, clothing and other warlike stores to the army deployed both at the LAC and the LOC. The Ministry of Defence has written to the three main employees' federation calling the strike invalid and illegal.
The ordnance factories are being corporatized by the government with a view to ensure that good practices of the corporate industries are absorbed by the ordnance factories and that they deliver bang for the buck. There's tremendous amount of investment. There is no denying the fact that the ordnance factories are strategic assets, but they must deliver. And that delivery has not been to the satisfaction of the user.
The workers are protesting a proposal to corporatize the factories accused by the army of, in some instances, 74% ammunition failing to meet minimum acceptable risk level. Only 49% ammunition targets met. 960 crore rupees lost due to faulty ammunition. 403 accidents since 2014. 27 soldiers lost their lives in accidents due to faulty ammunition. Multiple committees, from the TK Nair Committee in 2000 to the Lieutenant General D.B. Shiketkar Committee, recommended corporatization of the Ordnance Factory Board run 41 factories. But instead of improving output and quality control, the workers have threatened to go on an indefinite strike instead. The question remains, will workers be able to sink their differences with the government and put India first? With Sandeep Unnithan and Shivarur in Delhi. Bureau Report, India Today. Sandeep Unnithan is Executive Editor, India Today magazine. He broke the story. He joins us on the broadcast. Also with us is Lieutenant General Gurmeet Singh, former Deputy Chief of the Army Staff, and Hari Mohan, former Chairman of the Ordnance Factory Board. And if I may start with you, Mr. Hari Mohan, is this the time to go on a strike when the enemy is at the gates?
First of all, I have a very strong objection. You have said that OFB strikes the army. OFB will never strike the army. The way Indian Army is committed to the country, similarly, Ordnance Factory Organization is committed to the country and equally committed to Indian Army. Ordnance Factory Board would always stand by the side of Indian Army at any time. So please let us not try to give a color that Ordnance Factory Board is striking Army. Army is our main customer, and we are, Ordnance Factories are for Army, and we will work for Army. So far as strike is concerned, that strike is on a different
Sir, I'm sure
count.
your actions will speak louder than your words. In case you decide to call off the strike, in case the OFB decides to call off the strike and manufactures whatever the armed forces require in the numbers that they require. If I may bring in Sandeep Unnithan for just a moment. Sandeep, only 49%, and this is the latest report, only 49% of what the armed forces require in terms of ammunition, their demands have been met, and 74% of the ammunition did not meet the GSQRs. Am I right, Sandeep?
Yes, Gaurav, there have been various instances of the army pointing out their unhappiness with the Ordnance Factory Board products, whether it's the ammunition, the rate of production of the ammunition. There have been very serious issues that have been raised, not just by the army, but also by successive CAG reports. There have been former army officers who've told us of instances of, defective ammunition and fuses not functioning the way they should have been, and in fact, endangering the lives of men. So these are very serious issues, Gaurav. But the main issue here is the fact that you choose to go on a strike at a time when, as you mentioned, the enemy is at the gates. I mean, that couldn't have been a worse time for any factory, any union or any national asset that the Ordnance Factory Board is to go on a strike. I mean, they are the strategic reserve of the Ministry of Defense. That's the reason for the Ordnance Factory Board to exist, is the fact that they are a strategic reserve. They can do what is called surge capacity, ramp up rapidly in the times of crisis. If you need boots, you need high altitude clothing, tents, and whatnot. 80% of their products are meant for the Indian Army. And at a time like this, when you even threaten to go on a strike, I mean, that puts serious doubts into the minds of your largest customer. You have a serious trust deficit issue with your customer. Rather than solve it, you have chosen to go on a strike.
General Gurmeet Singh, yes. I cannot fathom it. I'm a civilian. I cannot just understand how can the Ordnance Factory Board even think of a strike when we are losing soldiers at the line of control and the line of actual control. But General Gurmeet Singh, you're a soldier. You've been Deputy Chief of the Army. You've dealt with ordnance factories. Is this an appropriate time or reason to go on a strike?
Gaurav, to be honest, the Ordnance Factory Board and its union, federation, confederation is absolutely out of tune with the time and the environment. And they don't seem to be understanding the needs of the national security and also the needs of Indian armed forces. In fact, I fail to understand what is their priority, what is their professionalism. In fact, they are the strategic asset of the nation, of the MOD, but is this their priority? In fact, to be honest, on one side, our government is saying, let's move on the aspect of self-reliance, make in India, defense sector, local, all those strategies are changing. And they are absolutely on the totally different route. In fact, they must understand what is the need of the hour. Gaurav, you've been to the DPO, Eastern Ladakh, Leh Ladakh. You've seen for yourself. Is this the time to hold the hand of the Indian Armed Forces, or have their own priorities for themselves?
Mr. Mohan, you've been chairman of the Ordnance Factory Board. You understand the system. You are the system. Why would the Ordnance Factory Board go on a strike or threaten to go on a strike at this time?
First of all, Ordnance Factory Board is not on strike. It is the unions and federations, and they have given a strike for
It's the unions,
certain reasons.
80,000 workers.
Yeah. See, but let me tell you one thing. The unions and the workers, they are equally committed to the country, equally committed to Indian Army. If Indian Army needs anything at China border or anything is needed at the Pakistan border, I am sure that they will make sure that it is made available. The Ordnance Factories has fully supported Indian Army during the Kargil time. And during the COVID crisis also, Ordnance Factories, when they were told to close down, they were told to sit at home. At that time, the factories have worked. So you cannot question the commitment of the Ordnance Factories and Ordnance Factories workers and Ordnance Factories employees toward the nation. They are equally as committed as.
अरे सर, कोविड के लिए सैनिटाइजर बनाना और बोफोर्स के लिए गोला बनाना are completely different things, especially when you talk about quality control. If the army has issues with quality control, and Sandeep, correct me if I'm wrong.
इंडियन आर्मी को जो चाहिए वो आयुध निर्माणी संगठन देगा और जो चाहिए जब चाहिए सब दिया जाएगा. स्ट्राइक अलग बात है और आर्मी को सप्लाई अलग बात है.
नहीं,
अगर आप
सर,
कोई भी
भीख नहीं चाहिए, अधिकार में चाहिए.
कौन कह रहा है कि हम भीख देते हैं? हम तो आपको ऑन पेमेंट देते हैं. आप देखिए, आप ये बताइए कौन सा आइटम है जो आपको सप्लाई नहीं किया जा रहा है, कौन सा आइटम है जिसकी मैन्युफैक्चरिंग रोकी जा रही है. आप डिमांड्स बताइए. ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्रीज के लोग आपको मीट करके देंगे. आपकी उस प्रोडक्शन लाइन को चलाएंगे जो आइटम आपको चाहिए. जो वॉर के टाइम में
तो फिर why is the army saying, and Sandeep sir, let's talk on facts. Sir, on India Today we only talk facts. It's a 2015 report that says only 49% of requirements that have been met. It's a 2017-18 report that says 74% of 1,700 ammunition pieces of ammunition that were required, types of ammunition that were required, they did not meet the minimum level, the minimum risk assessment level. Sandeep,
in the last 5 years, we have met the Ordnance Factory Board has met the requirement from 94 to 98%. The whatever targets has been given to Ordnance Factory Board, there is a parliamentary report which where it is recorded that 94 to 98%.
Sir, total पूरा नहीं करना है, quality control. Sir, total पूरा नहीं करना है. Sir, total पूरा करना है और quality issues. And Sandeep, correct me if I'm wrong, there are major issues with quality control.
Yes, yes, Gaurav, and these have been flagged repeatedly.
27 soldiers have lost their lives.
Yes.
406 cases of accidents.
That's correct. And there have been numerous cases of defective ammunition resulting in guns blowing up, tanks, being destroyed beyond repair. These are very serious issues, Gaurav, and it's time that the OFB tackle it. I mean, I'm not for once saying that the OFB is not required. I mean, as I said, the OFB is a strategic asset of the nation. I mean, they have, risen to the occasion many times. Anytime there's a war or a crisis, they've risen to the occasion. So the point is that, this is not the time to even talk about a strike. At a time when you're looking at, like you mentioned, a two-front war. You have shelling on at the Pakistan border. You have the PLA sitting on the border with Tibet. And here you have the prospect of 41 factories, the employees going on a strike. I mean, we would be the laughing stock of the world, Gaurav. The fact that we have, employees of such critical defense factories.
Incidentally, the ordnance factories, you're absolutely right, Sandeep. Sandeep, you're absolutely right. The strike happens on the 12th of October, and that's the day the two corps commanders meet. General Gurmeet Singh, you've interacted with the Chinese. They'd have a smirk on their face that the entire Chinese machinery is geared up for Tibet. Sir, the entire machinery is geared up for Tibet, and in our country, our Ordnance Factory Board goes on a strike. Why? Because they're opposing corporatization.
Gaurav, you're absolutely right.
Is not in words, it's in action, it's in deeds.
Discuss multiple subjects.
Gaurav, may I? Gaurav, you are absolutely right.
Okay, first the general and then the chairman, former chairman.
Gaurav, you're absolutely right. I think Ordnance Factory has got their priority wrong. Let me tell you, Ordnance Factory is also responsible for leadership, command and control. In fact, this sheer bureaucratic dynamics and the duplicity in the talks won't work. What is needed is a reliability, dependability, trust, and the quality, which is not coming. I was very happy initially, 16 May, when the decision was taken on the corporatization. I think our leadership has got to take a hard decision. Look, nation first and national security is an arena of hard decision, of resolve, of national will. None of these things should be accepted at all.
Yes. Yes.
Sir, let me
Fair enough.
respond one by
Mr.
one.
Mohan,
First of all,
we
were talking
love
of
and
accident.
respect our ordnance
Out of-
factories. They are an asset
out
of our
the
country.
400
They're an asset of our country. Sir, if I may, you're an asset of our country. There's no denying that fact. We expect a surge. हम तो चाहते हैं आप दुगनी मेहनत करें, दुगने हथियार दें, इतने हथियार दें कि चीन और पाकिस्तान कांपे कि भारत के पास इतने हथियार हैं, नहीं लड़ेंगे हम उनके साथ. हमारे पास तोपें इस समय कम है, आप भी जानते हैं, मैं भी जानता हूं. हमारे पास इस समय आर्टिक टेंट्स कम है, आप भी जानते हैं, मैं भी जानता हूं.
जितना एमुनिशन, जितना हथियार चाहिए उतना बना के देंगी. कारगिल टाइम में ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री ने 24 घंटे काम किया. वर्कर लोग घर नहीं जाते थे, सारा काम वो 24
फिर भी हमें दक्षिण अफ्रीका से आयात करना ही पड़ा.
अगर ऐसी जरूरत होगी तो आयुध निर्माणी संगठन हमेशा देश के सामने खड़ा होगा, इंडियन आर्मी के साथ खड़ा होगा. पहली बात. दूसरी बात, जो आपने जो एक्सीडेंट की रिपोर्ट की बात कही है, मैं आपको बता चुका हूं कि 19% अम्युनिशन उसमें केवल ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड का इन्वॉल्व है जो एक्सीडेंट हुए हैं. 81% में ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री बोर्ड का अम्युनिशन इन्वॉल्व नहीं है. दूसरी बात बताता हूं, आप बोल रहे हैं कि 27 कैजुअलिटीज हुई हैं. जहां भी ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्रीज का अम्युनिशन इन्वॉल्व है, देयर आर ओनली 2% casualties are because of OFB ammunition, 98% is because of somebody else. And जो आप 27 का फिगर देख रहे हैं उसमें से 19
सर,
casualties
वो
ऐसी हैं
मुद्दा
जहां
है,
ammunition use ही नहीं हुआ.
but the
ammunition का
issue
use ही
still
नहीं कर रहे.
remains. Sir, issue still remains. How can
Sir,
how
ऐसा
can
है-
the ordnance factories, the
देखिए,
employees
ये-
think of going on a strike when the enemy is at our gate?
देखिए, ये ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री और आर्मी की लड़ाई नहीं है. ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री हमेशा इंडियन आर्मी को सपोर्ट करेगी, ये उनके ब्लड में है. और आर्मी का जो भी रिक्वायरमेंट है वो मीट करेगी. और अगर कोई भी आप क्वालिटी की बात कर रहे हैं, एक्सीडेंट की बात कर रहे हैं, किसी भी चीज को साइंटिफिकली एनालाइज करिए. डोंट ट्राई टू गिव अ पर्सपेक्टिव. या जस्ट
सर, दुश्मन दरवाजे पर खड़ा है और आधे लोग स्ट्राइक पर जाके बैठ जाए, हाथ पे हाथ धर के बैठ जाए और बोले हम तुम्हारे साथ हैं. सर, शब्दों में नहीं, कर्मों में साथ होना चाहिए. दैट इज द रिक्वायरमेंट.
आप ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री से डिमांड करिए ना, आप बताइए ना कौन सा अम्युनिशन चाहिए, बताइए ना कौन सा हथियार चाहिए. उस प्रोडक्शन लाइन को चलाया जाएगा और वर्कर्स को अपील की जाएगी कि आप उस प्रोडक्शन लाइन को चलने दीजिए जो हमें आर्मी को चाहिए. और मुझे पूरा भरोसा है
अपील करने की नौबत आएगी, अपील करनी पड़ेगी. उनके हृदय से यह भाव नहीं निकलेगा. उनके हृदय से यह भाव नहीं निकलेगा कि ये मेरा देश है, मेरे देश पर इस समय चाइनीज और पाकिस्तानी आके बैठे हुए हैं और हम अपने आप काम करें, चाहे तनख्वाह बाद में डबल हो ना हो, कॉर्पोरेटाइजेशन हो बाद में हो ना हो, दैट कैन बी डेल्ट विद लेटर.
आप यूनियन लीडर्स को बुला लीजिए, उनसे पूछ लीजिए कि अगर कंट्री को कोई चीज की जरूरत होगी तो ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री के वर्कर, ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री के एम्प्लॉय काम करेंगे नहीं करेंगे. मेरा अपना मानना है, जितना मेरा अनुभव है, देश की जो भी जरूरत होगी उसके लिए ऑर्डिनेंस फैक्ट्री के वर्कर हमेशा कमिटेड है. आप डिमांड करिए, दैट डिमांड विल बी फुलफिल्ड.
सर, देश की जरूरत यह भी है कि इस समय जब चीन और पाकिस्तान का खतरा है तो हर भारतवासी एक साथ खड़ा हो और स्ट्राइक पे ना हो, कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर खड़ा हो कि हम एक साथ होंगे. Let's see the Ordnance Factory Board and the employees do that or not. It remains to be seen, sir. Ordnance Factory laborers and the workers, ये उनके मन की बात है सर. उनके मन में अगर इंडिया फर्स्ट होगा तो वो स्ट्राइक नहीं करेंगे, खासतौर पर तब जब दुश्मन सीमाओं पर, सरहदों पर खड़ा है. I will continue to track this story very, very closely. Will continue to appeal to all Indians to remain united when the enemy is at the gates. But General Gurmeet Singh, Mr. Hari Mohan and Sandeep Punnithan, as always, many thanks for joining me on India First. Let's always hope and pray we continue to keep India first.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.